Imagine waiting 3 days at a lonely train stop, only for a muddy-booted child to tug your skirt and say, "Will you marry my daddy instead?" That's not just strange. It's the kind of twist that flips your whole life upside down. And trust me, once you hear how it all unfolds, you won't be able to look away. In the spring of 1874, the forgotten settlement of Dust Rock, Wyoming Territory, sat quiet under winds that howled down from barren hills. Its train station wasn't much more than a crooked shack, a splintered bench, too short for resting, a stove that groaned with rust. Inside sat Clara Weston, clutching a crumpled letter she had carried across states. It had promised a husband, a ranch, a future. "Excuse me," she asked the gray-bearded station master. "There's no man here named Jonas Reddick?" He scratched his jaw. "Been working this depot 30 years. Ain't no Reddicks ever lived here. Folks say some trickster's been sending fake bride letters." Clara's stomach sank. The envelope was stamped official, the words inside tender. It had felt like hope. Now it burned like ash. She sat outside on the bench. That was day 1. By day 2, her food was gone. Locals passed by, whispering. Some pitied her. Others stared. Near the well, she heard a woman mutter, "Another one. 3rd girl this year." Clara clenched her jaw, too proud to cry. The station master offered tea on the 3rd morning. "Hate to say it," he said softly, "but I think Jonas never existed." Clara asked when the next train east was due. "Day after tomorrow." She nodded. "Then I'll wait." But not for him. That very afternoon, a tug on her skirt startled her. Looking down, she found a tiny girl, 5 at most. Boots several sizes too big, dust tangled in her braids, eyes sharp as flint. "You the lady who got left?" the child asked bluntly. Clara blinked. "I suppose so." "Then maybe marry my daddy instead," the girl said, serious as a preacher. Before Clara could reply, the child gripped her hand. "Come on. Daddy's ranch is out there. He says he don't need a wife. But maybe nobody asked him right." The girl's name was Maggie. Against all reason, Clara followed. After 3 nights on a bench, and nothing but despair, the warmth of a child's hand was the first comfort she'd felt in months. By sundown, they reached a ranch scarred by weather, but sturdy enough to stand. Peeling paint, sagging barn, 2 horses eyeing newcomers. A man stepped from the porch, broad-shouldered, jaw like carved stone, eyes that carried storms. "Daddy!" Maggie shouted. "I brought somebody." The man frowned. "I didn't send for a wife." Clara's fingers tightened on her bag, but she lifted her chin. "Then maybe someone else sent me. For her." She looked down at Maggie, who grinned up at her new friend. For a flicker of a second, something in the man's face cracked. Not enough for a smile, but enough to show he was human under all that iron. His name was Samuel Callan. That night, Clara meant to leave by sunrise. She packed, laced her boots, braced herself for rejection. But before dawn, she heard coughing, weak and pitiful. Maggie sat curled in a doorway, cheeks flushed, eyes watery. Clara knelt, touched her forehead. "You're burning up." Samuel appeared, tense. "She sick?" Clara nodded. "Fever's real." The girl clung tighter to Clara than her own father. Samuel swallowed hard. "She wants you. She never takes to strangers." Clara smoothed the blanket. "Then I'll stay, just until she's better." And so she did. Days blurred into chores. Hauling water, mending clothes, nearly tripping over chickens that seemed to plot against her. Nights blurred into whispers from a fevered child who never let go of her hand. Samuel spoke only in instructions. Boil water, feed the hens, watch the stove. Never her name. Yet Clara caught his silent glances. When she patched Maggie's nightgown, when she stirred broth, when she carried the girl to bed. One night, Clara dozed at the kitchen table, candle low, a half-mended sock in her lap. Samuel returned from the barn, smelling of cold earth. He paused, studied her sleeping face, then draped a blanket gently over her shoulders. His hand hovered above her hair, but he pulled back. He blew out the candle and stood in the shadows a long moment, watching not with emptiness, but with something else. A man, remembering what softness felt like. For the first time since stepping off that train, Clara Weston felt Dustrock wasn't a mistake. Not because of the man, but because of the child who clung to her without hesitation, and the quiet way that child's father had begun to let light crack through his grief. By the second week, Clara rose with the dawn, tending stove and oats, while Maggie curled against the table, half asleep. She braided the girl's hair, stitched her torn sleeve. Samuel never said thank you, just nodded, boots heavy, as he walked out to the fields. But slowly, he stopped telling her to stay inside. He handed her baskets, let her feed chickens, showed her which cow limped. They worked in rhythm, never quite together. In town, gossip followed. At the store, Clara heard them whisper, "She's the third. Pretty thing, too." The last girl cried herself sick. She only smiled at the clerk, ignoring it. She'd survived worse than gossip. What if the person you've grown close to still belongs to someone who isn't even alive anymore? What if every drawer, every silence, every glance hides a ghost you'll never replace? This isn't a love story yet. It's a battlefield of grief, memory, and a woman trying to decide if she even has the right to stay. That night, as Clara Weston folded little Maggie Callan's nightgown, a heaviness pressed into her chest. She wasn't Samuel's wife. She wasn't part of this family. She was a guest who had already overstayed. The next afternoon, she gathered eggs from the chicken coop. Maggie dozed on the porch steps, thumb near her mouth. Samuel, repairing a loose shutter, froze when he heard his daughter mumble a single word in her sleep. "Mama." The sound cut through him. He lowered his tools and walked straight inside without a word. That evening at supper, Samuel didn't speak. Maggie's cheerful chatter filled the silence, but between Samuel and Clara stretched an invisible wall. Clara knew she couldn't live as someone she wasn't. That night, she packed quietly. She folded her borrowed apron, left the worn boots by the door, and placed a note on the table. "Thank you for letting me be here for a little while." Sleep never came. She lay listening to the wind scrape against the shutters. Before sunrise, she walked into the kitchen, ready to leave. Samuel was already there, holding Maggie against his shoulder while stirring porridge at the stove. Maggie clung to him, half awake. Samuel glanced at Clara. "I thought you were leaving." "I still might," she admitted. He said nothing more, just took her shawl, the blue one she wrapped around herself every morning, and draped it gently over the back of her chair. Not a bench, not a stool, her place. Clara's breath caught. She brushed her fingers over the fabric, and for the first time Samuel's silence felt less like distance and more like invitation. "She likes your stories," he muttered. "And you?" Clara asked softly. His lips twitched. "I like that she smiles." Her hands trembled as she sat down. not from cold, but from the strange realization that this man hadn't known how to ask her to stay. And that, at least, was a truth. Not love. Not yet. But a choice. Later that week, while hunting for clean linen after Maggie spilled honey on her dress, Clara opened the wrong drawer. Beneath folded cloths lay a small wooden box. Its edges were worn smooth, hinges rusted from time. She shouldn't have opened it, but her hands moved faster than her conscience. Inside, letters, dozens of them, all written in the same delicate, looping hand, everyone addressed to Mary. Clara unfolded the one on top, dated nearly 5 years past. I don't know how to live without you, it read, but I'm learning. Because of her. She has your eyes when she laughs, and my silence when she doesn't. I hate the mornings most. That's when you should be here the most. Her throat tightened. She was still holding the box when Samuel came in, boots muddy, a coil of rope over one shoulder. His eyes flicked from the drawer to her trembling hands. That's not yours, he said, voice low, sharp. I know, she whispered. I didn't mean to. Maggie spilled. I was just trying to help. I don't need help with this. Clara's eyes stayed on his. I wasn't trying to fix anything. He stepped closer, jaw set. Then, his voice cracked. You don't know what it's like. To lose your whole world in one night. To hold the only woman who ever saw you clearly. Bleeding out with your child in her arms. And then, to look at that child every single day and pretend you're not breaking. Tears burned Clara's eyes. I'm not here to replace her, she said gently. I'm just here to be present. Samuel's fists clenched. For a moment, she thought he'd retreat into silence, but instead he confessed, I wrote to her. Every week after she died, I'd sit in the barn, pretend she was somewhere waiting. I never mailed a single one. Clara's voice softened. She would have read them anyway. His eyes lifted to hers, haunted. She sounded like someone worth loving, Clara added. She was, Samuel said. His voice broke. She still is. Silence wrapped around them. The wind pressed against the walls. The fire crackled low. From the back room, Maggie murmured in her sleep, Mama. Neither of them moved at first. Then Samuel exhaled, closed the box, and set it on the table, rather than tucking it away. His hand lingered on the wood. I should have burned them, he whispered. You should let someone read them, Clara answered softly. Why you? I didn't choose it, she said, but I won't turn away. And for the first time, his face shifted, not softened, but cracked open, like a stone admitting it had veins of something warm inside. Follow or subscribe to the channel if you want to see how this broken man, his daughter, and the stranger who stumbled into their lives choose what to keep and what to let go of. What if the one place you thought you'd finally found peace suddenly burned to the ground? What if walking away meant breaking not just your own heart, but a child's too? And what if the man you swore you'd never belong to suddenly begged you to stay? When Clara Weston folded Maggie's little nightdress that evening, the weight of her own place in that cabin pressed hard against her ribs. She was not Samuel Callan's wife. She was never supposed to be here. One afternoon, she glimpsed a fragile moment. Maggie dozing on the porch, thumb tucked near her mouth. Samuel, mending a shutter, froze when the child mumbled a word in her sleep. Mama. The sound tore through him like glass. He put down his tools and walked inside without a word. That night, he hardly looked at Clara. his silence louder than thunder. Clara knew then. She could not stay, not as a shadow of someone else. So, in the dark hours, she packed a few dresses, a worn book of poems, gloves with holes in the fingertips. She folded each item carefully, as though neatness could soften the leaving. She didn't weep. She had no tears left. At dawn, the cabin was still. Chickens hadn't yet stirred. Maggie slept curled beneath her quilt, one arm flung outward like she was reaching for a dream. Clara stood watching her, far too long, before she turned away. In the kitchen, Samuel stood by the stove, kettle steaming. "I'll be going this morning," Clara said. He nodded but didn't turn. The silence sliced her. "I think I've stayed longer than I should. Maggie's stronger now. You'll both be fine." Still nothing. Clara forced a smile. "Thank you for letting me stay." At last, Samuel turned. His eyes weren't cold, just braced, as if he'd already accepted her absence. "I'll tell her you said goodbye." "No," Clara whispered. "I'll say it myself." When Maggie awoke, Clara knelt beside her bed. The girl blinked, then saw the bag. Her small voice cracked. "No." Clara smoothed the child's curls. "I have to go, sweet pea." "Why?" Maggie's lip trembled. Clara hugged her tight. "You'll be just fine. Your daddy loves you. But I love you too," Maggie cried. Clara's throat closed. "And I love you too." She pried the girl's hands from her skirt. The hardest thing she'd ever done. Outside, the morning air bit sharp. Clara's spine was straight. But every step away from that house felt like it might shatter her bones. Then, a cry ripped through the air. "She's my mom now." Clara froze. Her hands clenched the bag. Footsteps thundered behind. Samuel burst from the doorway, Maggie clinging to his chest, face wet with tears. "She's not the only one who doesn't want you to leave," Samuel rasped. His eyes locked onto Clara's. "I don't know what this is between us. I just know it hurts when you're not here." Maggie reached out. Clara touched her hair, then lifted her gaze to Samuel. "I don't need promises," she said. "Good," he answered. "I don't have any. Just reasons to ask you to stay." Clara let her bag fall to the dirt. When she stepped forward, it wasn't just toward him. It was toward both of them. Then the storm came. Wind tore across the plains. Rain hammered the roof. Inside, Clara held Maggie close, while Samuel fought to bar the shutters. Lightning split the night. A thunderous crack shook the earth. A glow flared red beyond the ridge. Clara's stomach dropped. The barn. Before Samuel could stop her, Clara was already sprinting into the rain, mud splashing her skirts. Flames licked the barn roof, smoke curling to the heavens. Sparks leapt dangerously toward the shed. "Are you mad?" Samuel shouted, catching up. "There's no time." The mare's still inside. She flung open the barn doors. Heat slammed her face. The rafters burned, beams collapsing. Inside, the mare screamed, trapped behind fallen timber. "Get the gate," Samuel barked. Together, coughing and heaving, they lifted the charred beam. The mare bolted free, nearly knocking Clara off her feet. "Out! Go!" Samuel smacked the horse's flank, sending it into the storm. But the barn groaned, fire chewing through its bones. Clara staggered toward the trough, filling buckets. "We can stop it spreading," Samuel cursed, but joined her. Side by side, they battled the blaze through the storm, drenched and smeared with ash. By the time the last embers hissed into mud, dawn had begun to pale the sky. Clara collapsed to her knees, lungs ragged, palms raw. Samuel dropped beside her. "Let me see your hands," he said, voice low. And for the first time, Clara didn't argue. Follow or subscribe to the channel to see how fire and storm turn strangers into something far more dangerous, something like family. Imagine kneeling in the wet earth, hands blistered raw from fire and rope, and the man you swore you'd walk away from takes them in his own like fragile glass. That's not just survival. That's the moment a wall of grief finally cracks wide enough to let love step through. Clara Weston's palms were red and scorched, her skin torn where heat and rope had seared. Samuel Callan cradled her hands as though they were too delicate for this world. "You're burned," he murmured. "I'll live," she rasped. "You shouldn't have gone in alone." "You'd have done the same." His eyes lifted to hers. "Yes, but I've already lost too much. I couldn't bear—" His words broke off, swallowed by the wind. Clara's chest ached, not from smoke, but from something deeper. Samuel pulled a cloth from his pocket, wrapping her hands with careful precision. His touch was rough, yet impossibly gentle. He lingered a moment, too long before binding the other. And when he didn't let go, Clara's breath caught. "You stayed," he whispered, almost to himself. Clara frowned softly. "What?" "When no one else did." Her reply was silence. Instead, she leaned forward, pressing her forehead lightly against his. They closed their eyes and breathed together. The world could wait. The chores, the whispers, the pain. In that fragile pause, two broken lives knotted into something new. Later, the kitchen glowed with lamplight and the smell of cornbread. The table gleamed, scrubbed spotless, set with 3 cups and 2 plates. Maggie stood at the edge, hair brushed neat, curls tucked back like she was holding a secret. "What's all this?" Clara asked. "A surprise." Maggie grinned. Before Clara could answer, Samuel stepped out, stiff in a freshly combed shirt, collar crooked but purposeful. "Figured we owed you a proper supper." Her heart stumbled. They sat together, 3 instead of 2. Maggie's chatter filled the room, while Samuel's quiet gaze lingered, darting away whenever Clara noticed. When the meal was done, Maggie scampered to the mantel and returned with both hands cupped. "I have something for you." Inside her palms lay a small carved wooden ring. "Daddy made this." Clara's breath caught. The grain was smooth, polished by care. She looked up to find Samuel close. "It isn't much," he said, "but I wanted you to have something made by my hands. You were never meant to wait at that station," he added. "You were meant to arrive here." Her lips trembled. "Samuel, I don't come with ease," he admitted. "I come with scars, with silence, with a little girl who needs more than I ever knew how to give. But I come with a promise that I'll spend every day learning how to deserve the kindness you've shown us." His hand pressed hers to his chest, heartbeat steady beneath her palm. "Will you marry not just me, but us?" Tears spilled before Clara could answer. She pressed her forehead to his. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes," Maggie squealed, clapping. "She said yes." Clara laughed through tears. Samuel smiled, an honest, whole smile, and slid the wooden ring onto her finger. It didn't sparkle, but it fit. In that warm glow, their future began, not loud, but steady and forever. 1 year later, the Callan Ranch no longer echoed with silence. Laughter rang through its walls. Maggie's giggles chased Clara's footsteps, while Samuel hummed as he worked. Shutters stayed open, letting morning spill inside. Flowers bloomed stubbornly against the dusty backdrop. Clara flipped pancakes, while Maggie scribbled with charcoal at the table. Samuel came in with firewood, pausing just long enough to kiss Clara's cheek, a simple act that still startled her when she remembered the man he once was. Later, Samuel stood by the mantel, staring at the empty frame that had hung there for years. The photograph it once held had faded away. He turned. Maybe it's time we put something in that frame again. A real picture of us, Clara, stilled. You're sure? She's already in it, he said, glancing at Maggie outside with her wooden dolls. It's just time the world saw it too. A week later, dressed in their best, they sat for a photograph in town. Clara in her blue dress, Maggie with ribbons in her hair, Samuel awkward in a crisp white shirt. When the shutter clicked, it captured not just faces, but a promise. When the photo arrived, Clara placed it gently in Samuel's old wooden box, alongside the letters he'd once written to Mary. Then she added her own. Dear Clara, it began, you thought you were forgotten, left behind, but you weren't. You were being led, not to the man you expected, but to the life you needed, to a child only you could soothe, to a man who thought no one would ever stay. You weren't a mistake. You were an answer. And now you are not waiting. You are home. She signed it simply, Clara Callan. That night on the porch, Samuel handed her warm cider. The stars glittered above. She sleeps with the photo under her pillow, he said. Clara smiled against his shoulder. She belongs in it. He kissed her temple. Smartest one of us. The best matchmaker I've ever met, she agreed, laughing. And in that laughter, the last of the loneliness faded. The porch light stayed on longer than usual that night, its glow whispering the truth neither of them doubted anymore. No one here waits alone. Not anymore. Follow or subscribe to the channel for more slow burn Western love stories, where the heart always finds home, even in the most unexpected places.